And with that, we have representatives from almost every stages in the journey that you go on as an entrepreneur. So I thought to kick off this session, instead of me reading the bios that I have of each and every one of you, I would actually ask you to introduce yourself, but I'll ask you to do it. Are you guys familiar with the entrepreneurial journey in some sort of way? I'm sure you are. So what I'll do is I'll ask you to familiarize yourself a little bit with this entrepreneurial journey, going from the kind of very early stages where you as a founder get inspired, you start to go to your hackathons, you start to learn about setting up your company. Then you start your company, you look for your team, your significant others in your journey. Then you go for the startup approach, you go and look for your scalable business model. Then you scale up the company, and hopefully in the end you're the champion that exits this company or make it into a sustainable business. So what I'll do is just give you 1 minute each to say who you are, what you're doing, and what stage of this entrepreneurial journey you're working with the most. Does that make sense? All right, let's start from over here. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Tomasz Świeboda. I run Innovo, which is a Polish-based venture capital. We are in the later stage, but let's call it pre-A stage of the company. And we feel very strong, we feel very good at the startup or scale-up stage, and because we have gone it ourselves. Yeah, we are very good at scaling companies. I was working for a Polish fund which had a company called Żabka. Żabka is the Polish largest retail chain. It's like the Polish 7-Eleven, and it was sold for over 1 billion zloty. And it was very interesting. I was in a fund owning it, but very interesting to see how the company grew from relatively small to 1.5 billion. And my business partner, Michał, he's ex-Rocket Internet, and he was running Food Panda operations in CE. And we strongly support our companies in extensive growth.
All right, great. Can we have the slide back up? Guys, thank you. All right, go ahead.
My name is Pavel. I'm with Almaz Capital. We are a VC. So we invest between stages 4 and 5. And we target companies that do business or want to do business in the US and are founded or have their R&D in Eastern Europe and former Soviet Union. So we invest at these stages, we invest anywhere from 3 million to 15 million in one scoop. We stay with the company for a long time, try to help it to grow both in the US as well as in this region. In this region with scaling R&D, in the US with scaling business.
All right, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Joanna Grandzicka. I'm Vice President of Gdańsk Business Incubator Starter, and we help startups and the stage pre-seed, I think. We run Starter from the beginning 5 years ago. Now we can talk about some ecosystem in Gdańsk for startups, and it's developing a lot since 2-3 years ahead. And we 2 years ago start our first edition of acceleration program. So it was our another adventure with the startups. We invest some little money and help them by mentoring and some experts. That's all, I think.
All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rachel Milgram, and I come from Tel Aviv. I've worked both in Silicon Valley and in Boston for startups and major corporations. I now help and advise and mentor startups in Israel and connect them with VCs in order to promote their growth. So I work with startups early stage, round A and round B. Our approach in Israel, in Tel Aviv, is to develop products that are ready for the global market and that are scalable. So we actually immediately develop products that are global because the Tel Aviv industry market is small. So our approach is always to think globally and develop products that are scalable, and our main income comes from the US. After that, we focus on Europe.
All right, thank you.
So I miss a little bit the seventh one, and that's also tears. Because if you start up a business,
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot of sweat and tears.
That's true. That's true.
So you
Go
need
with
to
that.
put 1/7 up. Because I've experienced all these stages as being an entrepreneur since I was 21. I started 12 companies myself, failed 4 times, sold 2, had 1 IPO, but also had 2 bankruptcies. So all the 7 stages I've been part of. And since 2012, I'm one of the managing partners of Startupbootcamp, Europe's largest accelerator program. And we've accelerated 350 companies in the past 5 years. And also all went through these stages with them together. Because of course, not all companies are successful, but we need to embrace failure. So that's why I'm here.
All right, great, thank you. So we have everything represented here, and that's great because when we talk about startup ecosystems, you know, the benchmark is always Silicon Valley. You know, you want to be your Silicon Valley of your local region or something. When you look at the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem, there's definitely some significant things that makes that ecosystem completely remarkable. I've heard some of the you know, the grills from Silicon Valley saying, obviously it's the sun, you know, there's always sun, but also the fact that you have really, really high net worth people and experienced people that's gone through the process of a lot of time engaging at all the stages. And basically that's going to be one of the things that we're going to dive into the next 20 minutes to understand. We're not going to go for the typical, you know, why are we not Silicon Valley? How are we going to become Silicon Valley? Because I think, you know, all of us, we probably agree that that's not the right way to go for us. What we want to talk about is how can we view the ecosystems? You know, what are the things that we should all aim for, you know, building and lifting up in our local regions here? So what I'll open up with is, you know, I said we're not going to just go for the what is Silicon Valley and what are we, but I'll still just ask a little bit of the questions. You guys have experienced Silicon Valley, a lot of you. Where do you see the main differences between Silicon Valley ecosystem and what you experience here in Europe? Maybe you guys from Poland to start with.
They start earlier than us, you know, this is the difference.
All right. Start earlier than you guys? Yep, go ahead.
Well, it's difficult to say the difference. Like, the difference is massive. Yeah, I would say, yeah, they start at earlier, but there is a first place, or there is a like first place advantage. Yeah, and they have it, and they are much further. Yeah. From my perspective, the biggest difference is exactly what you already said. The lack, at least in Poland, of experienced people in building global businesses. And the fact that they do have lots of people who build global businesses, and once you start a new one, it's easier to hire people very experienced, and it's easier to have a co-founder who already started 3 or 4 companies. We, like the fund I run, likes investing in second-time entrepreneurs, yeah, because you don't have fifth-time entrepreneurs in Poland, yeah.
Right.
And I talked to my friend in the US, and he said they often invest in 4 or 5th-time entrepreneurs, and I believe that every next time is easier, yeah? And so one thing is access to knowledge, and the other is access to capital. It's also much more difficult. In Poland, you have like lots of funds supported by the government. I understand in the US, like most of the VCs are private and supported with private money, yeah? And it makes a big difference on every level, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, I've worked in Silicon Valley for 10 years, and it was an amazing experience. And I don't know the Polish market, but I can say that Silicon Valley is very open to new ideas. They're willing to listen. If you have a crazy idea, you'll find someone who will be able to actually listen to you, and you'll find the right mentors, and of course access to investment. And they're amazing at marketing. They know how to market, and as you know, that sometimes, you know, the success of your product really depends on the right marketing and the right, and just the ability of Americans or people in Silicon Valley to look at certain markets and say, I challenge that. I think I have a better idea. And I think we could turn this around. I think I can compete with Intel, and I'm just one person. And then, and then, you know, some crazy investors say, hey, let's try it and I'll mentor you. So really being open to challenging old industries and open to new ideas, taking risks.
Mark?
But as we all know, in the Valley, it started only with a few guys from Fairchild Semiconductors.
Yeah.
And it's only 60 years ago. Yeah? So there's always a Valley around the corner. But I totally vouch with what she's saying, because you literally, maybe you heard of the story of Andreessen Horowitz, where the guy stepping in, this is my team, I need 25 million. What do you do? Do you really care? Okay, so they got 25 million and they're building now a company.
Right.
And that is how bold the people are, because all the VCs over there are almost all entrepreneurial driven. And all the VCs in Europe are unfortunately driven by banks and venture capital who were not on the entrepreneurial side. So I think we're missing really entrepreneurial venture capital who are willing to invest in first, second, third or fourth entrepreneurs. Because if we all start investing in second-time entrepreneurs, we don't have first-time entrepreneurs anymore.
Right.
Yeah? So we need to invest in all the...
Support the whole...
Yes, support the whole ecosystem. Look at yourself at an important part of that ecosystem and don't only do cherry picking. Because the more we know, the less I understand. Because we literally don't have a clue to recognize a good startup from the outside. Because I saw good teams failing 6 months after an accelerator program like ours, and I see like, ooh, they're building a fantastic company.
Right.
Yeah. So the more we say we know, the more we lie.
Yeah.
I think also another difference is that in Silicon Valley, it's easier just to sell stuff, to make money, because the companies are more eager to buy new product and untested products. It's a bit hard for European company to try to buy something from a startup and to test it. And US companies are more open somehow to that. So if you look at some new emerging products or technologies, typically US market is like 90% of world spending in the first year or two. Then finally Europe is catching up, Asia is catching up for many, many new technologies. So in that respect, US is very distinct.
But let me drill down a little bit with that one, because I think what we're seeing here in Europe right now is that it's really changed. This whole startup revolution is all over. Did you guys feel in what the companies you're working with that more and more companies, like corporates, are actually playing a role now in the startup ecosystem? And how do you see that influence the startup ecosystem? Both as product buyers, but also taking responsibility and so on.
Now, of course, 13 of our accelerator programs are all supported by corporates. Yep. So we work with corporates like Vodafone, KLM, Cisco is also one of our partners. And they literally wanted to tap into our new startups. So what you are saying about corporates not willing to work with startups, that is past. In the last 2 or 3 years, we see a tremendous increase of corporates willing to test, to do pilots. Even the big banks, like ING, Rabobank, Barclays, they're working with startups, literally do a very closed test, and they're open for it. So it's gaining.
But it's not so obvious in Poland today. It's a little, we are on the start in this corporate startup cooperation. Really, it's not. Maybe you are 1-2 years ahead of us.
Well, then this is going to have to change, because large corporations around the world understand that innovation will not come from large corporation. Innovation will come from startups. Startups are able to come up with new ideas, new ways of thinking fast, and if they're not going to help and incubate those ideas, they're going to be out of the market, or they're going to lose a lot of market share. And companies around the world understand that. They embrace innovation. Plus, if you're a startup and you have a great idea, you have to provide value for this corporation. So you come and you say, well, you have a product, and you know what? My product is competing with yours. It's faster, it's better, it's cheaper. You want to try it? And they can't afford to say no. They really can't afford to say no, because you know what? There's another large corporation that's going to actually become interested in that idea and going to buy it. So large corporations around the world understand that, and they're really supportive of young startups. And I see it in Tel Aviv, I see it in Silicon Valley, and I see it in Boston. I lived in all three places. And that's going to have to also change in Poland for Poland to succeed.
Let's have a comment from Poland.
I won't comment for Poland. I'll just comment that for many large companies in different European countries, competition is much less fierce than it is in the US. So they don't have as much pressure to compete like local companies. If you take like local post service for some country, it's unlike in FedEx or other guys competing in the US, they will be less, they feel less pressure to buy new IT tools to compete. That's what I'm saying. Of course, global companies, Coca-Cola, everywhere, it's everywhere.
I've seen lots of cooperation between startups and corporation, or I've seen it, and it works quite well. At least in our startups, we have one which does larger B2B projects. But at least in Poland, the corporate VCs, that they don't work so well, actually, or the ones I've seen. Mainly because they are corporations, and like in startup or in investing world, you need to be very flexible, which it's more difficult for the corporations to adapt. Yeah, you would have to have like a strong leader in the corporation saying that we'll have like totally separate VC arm, which I'm not sure how it works globally, but in Poland the corporate VCs, they don't work so well.
Great. So we chatted a little bit about some of the things that we're missing in regards to the ecosystem. I have a lot of American friends who talk about some of the really cool things that's happening here in Europe, and they're highlighting some areas where they'd actually say that what's happening here in Europe, maybe especially here in the eastern part of Europe, that there's really some benefits from building up the company here. Could you guys maybe reflect a little bit on that? What are the strengths, the strongholds of starting up the company here and the ecosystem here? What are our strengths? For example, talent.
Yeah, I think one strength, at least in the space of software as a service, is the availability of skilled programming and skilled developers, which is probably much cheaper than in the US, which is maybe not the crucial part, because I believe the crucial part in startups is sales and marketing capabilities. But in today's world, when like the access to capital is actually limited this year, let's say, or there is much more focus on profitability and on profitability, then running company from Poland is actually cheaper. Yeah, the Polish startups, I know, they don't burn so much money, and in the lack of capital, they are still able to survive, which I think today is an advantage anyway. Yeah, but the main thing is the availability of trained, skilled people in developers.
And talent that will stay with your company, not just jumping for the next opportunity again and again. You guys, any one of you have some pointers on that?
No, you just made my point.
Okay.
So if you have great talent, there's less chance that somebody will lure it away because there are fewer interesting startups and corporates. So they are more loyal, and they are very good people. So.
Okay. Any additional comments?
Yeah, I agree. The number one problem in Israel right now is that there's not enough talent. There are many startups and not enough developers. And I think in Poland it'll be easier. Plus the salaries are in the Silicon Valley are extremely high. I've lived in Silicon Valley. The rent and the real estate is so expensive. The rent also for facilities for companies is extremely expensive. So all in all, it's just really expensive to build a company in Silicon Valley today or in Tel Aviv. And there's a great opportunity for Poland to become a gateway to Europe. You can provide less expensive facilities, incredibly skilled workforce, much cheaper. At the same time, with the same culture and the same understanding of the market as in the U.S. Also, people, tend to have a lot of opportunities in Tel Aviv or in Silicon Valley or in Boston. They move around a lot. They get better salaries. They move around. I think Poland does not quite have that mentality. People like to maybe stick around with the same company. They're used to it. Their parents don't want to have them back in their house, in their room again. Like, in Silicon Valley, you lose your job, your startup didn't work out, you move back in with your parents. I don't think Polish families would see that in the same eye as the whole, the startup scene in Tel Aviv or in Silicon Valley. So that could provide a great opportunity, the workforce here and the price of housing and rent facilities.
Right.
I think it's similar actually. Like people do switch. Yeah, once you have opportunities and possibility to change, and it's better, then people do switch. But probably less than, as you said, less than in Israel or in the US.
I think that depends on the age of the founders also. If you have family and children, it's hard to move around the ocean. But I think that the important thing for us is to build some cooperations and think together, not each for themselves. As cooperate, I mean accelerators, VCs, and cities, I mean municipality, of course, and some other financial institution, because if we don't cooperate, there will be only some competition, and there will be no platform for the startups to start their journey in this slide.
Right.
Yeah, so in Tel Aviv or in Israel, in every city has an accelerator, has VCs that are positioned well to understand the startup ecosystem there. There's great cooperation between the government. The government helps pay for some of these initiatives. They develop programs to help startups. There are groups or accelerators or incubators that are focused on certain markets and certain industries. And like you mentioned, there is a support system around those startups. There's an ecosystem. And once you form an ecosystem, then more and more entrepreneurs are willing to take a risk and join the startup scene. More investors are pouring in from all over the world. It just does not happen in one day. It is really a major effort done by the government, by the local municipalities, by investors, by angel investors. All of them are joining hands to build the ecosystem.
So you just touched a little bit on the next point that I wanted to spend the next maybe 5 minutes on capital. Capital is one of the core components of a well-functioning startup ecosystem. Now, there's a lot of different types of money now being poured into the startup ecosystem. Obviously, there's the smart money coming from, I guess, from you guys. There's a lot of soft money. We have a lot of angels now that's all of a sudden there. Can I get your reflections on how's these capital systems developing? Maybe let's start here with a local perspective here from Poland. What are the good things that's happening here, and what are the challenges you're facing?
I think there is not much capital currently in Poland because the Polish ecosystem actually started, let's say, 8 years ago. Yeah, before you had one fund which is called NCI. You just talked to Tomasz Czechowicz. He was the really first VC in Poland for many years. Yeah, and somewhere around 2010-11, actually lots of the funds supported by the European Union started, and they finished end of last year. And this year there is the amount of funds is much more limited. And I believe we will see this year which one of those survive, which one of the previously supported by the government or the European Union will be able to stand up on their own and survive, and being like real, let's say, smart money, but real venture funds who build big companies and are able to survive. And I think it's connected to many things. Yeah, there is a change in the government which somehow somehow influences the situation. There is less capital from the government and from the internal Polish investors, and also the international US situation somehow decreased this year. Yeah, and all of it influences Poland as well. Yeah. But I have to, if I can comment one thing, from my perspective, the biggest thing and the biggest challenge is not the capital, but people. Yeah.
Okay.
We lack, and the way we deal with it in our fund is we import people from Germany. Yeah, Germany has a very well-established startup community. I strongly believe it's only because of one company which is called Rocket Internet. Yeah, Rocket Internet is a factory of a very well develops people being able to build global businesses. Yeah, and this is something that builds a lot. It's not the matter of capital, but the people there. Yeah, and I believe in Poland you need people who build global businesses, and this will be like the snowball. Yeah.
You know, there's a joke going on in Israel where they ask people, how did you get your first investment? And they say the three F's. You know, friends, fools, and family.
Yeah.
So it's no longer the case, but it took time to build a network of, angel investors, accelerators, large corporations, and the government. It's basically a whole circle of life that creates the ecosystem beyond the three F's today in the world.
So a question regarding this 3F, I think in Denmark right now, lately there's been actually talking about that joke too, but they call it the GFs, not being the girlfriends, but the government fools. Because there's so much, soft money and so on out there.
No, the government is a pump. It's literally a pump which needed to pump money to get the first-time entrepreneurs, make mistakes, then they become second, third-time entrepreneurs, and they don't make the mistakes anymore. So there's not a government fools. It's a very good approach of creating a pump of learning capabilities of new entrepreneurs. But what we do need in Europe is like a sort of a European-based startup, because what we now do is we create local fund with a Polish entity, and then for a bigger tier fund, they need to have a European-based fund. And they said, no, guys, I'm not going to invest in a Polish entity. You need to come to the UK or to Holland, because that's a more common legislation. Even sometimes a US entity. So what the fuck are we doing? We're creating, pumping local money, and then the company goes outside the country.
Right.
So we need to have sort of a legislation, European-wide, to have an EU a startup policy. And I think Holland is creating such an environment together with the Startup Delta, and we are helping the EU to make decisions on that. And as long as we don't do that from a European-based perspective, we're literally pumping local money, but then it's flowing outside. So we need to be more European-based.
Interesting. We have a couple of minutes for questions from the audience. If anybody, something they want to ask.
Not everybody at the same time, guys, please.
Don't this is almost too much questions right now. All right, so we have a couple of minutes to finish off. I think one of the things that I'd like to spend the last couple of minutes on is maybe for you guys to reflect a little bit on industry-wise. What do you see happening maybe here in Poland that's really booming industries that it could be super relevant to watch? Where are you guys really strong? What's really booming?
What we were really booming and is still booming in the last years is definitely SaaS and the software space, because we have so many developers or skilled developers. I know very many friends of mine run just software houses, but they are very profitable and they work for the US and Western Europe clients, and they perform very well. Out of those software houses, you have lots of products which are now various software as a service companies, and this is something which is booming right now, and I believe will be booming for the next years. The other point is, I think Poland is very strong in gaming, at least from the local or European perspective. We have a couple of unicorns which are built on gaming. We have the Witcher, which is a very high quality and globally well-known game. And in the newer technologies, I've seen, and I strongly believe in the virtual reality. It works in Poland as well, and you have lots of research in this area, and I hope it will be booming in the next years. As Tomasz said in your panel before, the fintech, we don't do it, but the MCI does it, and they have lots of investments in fintech, and this is also something. Poland has very well developed banking system, like Brazil, for example, because at the beginning after communism we had lots of the inflation was so good that the banking system had to be very effective. So I would say software and gaming, fintech, and virtual reality.
We see it from different perspective because we are on this pre-seed or even earlier stage. So we see some differences like some health. Life quality technologies is not so much, but it's coming, and some of social impact startups. This is some new trends I see in our area.
Okay, interesting. I guess, Marc, yours will be more pan-European, but...
Yeah, but I'm traveling a lot through Central European region, and what I see is that they're coming more impact, yeah, just like she said, but also a lot of hardware still, IoT stuff coming out of also Czech and a little bit going down south. But what they still lack, and that's already what we discussed, a very product focus and no business focus. I always call them problems in search, they're a solution in search for a problem. And I always try to express the need of a business guy, an experienced business guy in a team, who literally see, and not show the product, but ask for the problems that they want to solve. So, but they are getting there, and I'm amazed each time when I'm visiting. Well, last 2 years, I'm visiting Poland already for the 4th year in a row, and it's getting, this was not possible 4 years ago. Let me put it that way.
So what's really great is that I hear a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about what's happening both here locally in Poland in the ecosystem. Some of the gaps are being closed, though there's still a couple in terms of capital and in terms of the business focus, and also pan-European in Israel. There's actually really cool things happening here. And that's obviously because of guys like you and because of the guys that we have up here on stage. So please, let's give a big round of applause to the panel. Thank you guys so much.